Good evening, Uganda, and welcome to On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. Tonight, we have Major General Mugisha Muntu, who is the President General of the Forum for Democratic Change. A lot has happened for the last couple of days with the former presidential candidate now locked up, facing treason charges. And that is the story we'll be getting into, to know his condition and what is FDC's strategy as they battle the next 5 years. Welcome to the show once again. And your former presidential candidate, well, you want to call him president of the people, is incarcerated. In the last couple of days, have you been able to see him? Well, how is he faring?
I'll be going there tomorrow. I've worked out arrangements to go see him tomorrow. We had hoped to meet the day before yesterday at court. Unfortunately, they had informed us that they would bring him in our court at 9. By the time we got there, we found they had brought him at 8, and the court had already finished the business and taken him back by 8:30.
So for those who have seen him, and probably members of FDC's senior officers, yes, what do they say? How is he? What story does he tell you?
Well, of course, unfortunately, he's incarcerated. Nobody would want to be in prison. Is held in Ruzira after he had been flown into Moroto. Well, the situation wasn't certainly good. Fortunately, they flew him from Moroto to Ruzira because of the unstable situation which developed in Moroto, which the regime had not anticipated.
Unstable in what sense?
Well, I think they thought that, you know, Moroto is such a remote place. He'll be put there, and I believe that the game plan was to inconvenience any people who would be going there to see him, would inconvenience lawyers, and also hopefully keep Kampala psychologically remotely removed from the situation in Moroto. But in Moroto, there are quite a number of FDC supporters, and they started building up in numbers on a particular day.
Is this really true? Moroto and Karamoja area, where NRM gets about 90% and above?
There were no elections in Karamoja. But when the situation developed, they found that they couldn't handle it in Moroto as easily as possible. They think they would handle it here in Kampala. So they had to fly him back into Kampala, and now he's in Ruzira. It's unfortunate he's in prison, but it's much easier now for logistics and for legal support and coordination. However, in terms of his individual being, of course, he still has the spirit to fight. That's the most important thing.
He's facing treason charges, and that's a very serious charge, because he's of swearing in himself as president of this country at a function where the party president, you, Major General Mugisha Muntu, were absent.
I don't think we should go in the details of the case itself. I think it will unfold in the court as it is argued out. But what I would like to point, all of us who are looking at that situation, is the manner of response. Because the regime had several options. And to me, what is interesting is that if a regime is confident, even when there is a swearing in, you can choose not to carry out an arrest. Even if you prefer charges, at times you may even decide not to prefer charges and handle such a situation politically. Because if there is such a swearing in, if you are confident, if you have the support of the population, you'll not feel perturbed at all. But if you panic, you arrest the person who's been sworn in. You fly them to a remote place like they did in Moroto. Hardly a week passes. Situation gets unstable there. You fly them back to Kampala. You take them to Ruzira. You give different times, telling the lawyers, telling the party officials that you are bringing him to court at 9. You bring him at 8. By 8:30, you've taken him back to prison. And within that short period, the army, the police is littered all over the place. That paints a totally different picture. It shows you a regime which is terrified. And this is a political situation. It's not a legal situation. And I don't think it can be resolved legally. It has got to be handled in a different way.
Politically, how do you solve it politically? You want to have a dialogue with the NRM people? You want to take it to parliament where you have no numbers?
Let me ask you.
Yes.
If you go to a country, I don't know which country to pick on, say Denmark or Sweden or Germany or UK or US, and a group of persons, or even if it was a party for that matter, they get a lawyer and the person is sworn as the president of that country. Do you think anybody would pay any attention? Do you think even a government there would be bothered at all on what would have happened? Nobody would take notice.
So what you did was comedy? So what you did was comedy?
No.
Because you know what you did has no consequence, is inconsequential.
That there is panic in the regime.
Then why didn't you involve in comedy?
That there is panic in the regime to the extent that you see it shows you that
Major General, you've just stated
yes,
that what you did, if it was done in any other democracy elsewhere, nobody would pay attention. In other words, it will be understood to mean comedy.
Now, why
did you even involve yourselves in comedy?
Why there's attention here is that it has had an impact. We're involved in a struggle. One struggle, many fronts. You can fight on many fronts when you're involved in a situation of the nature in which we are involved in. What I was trying to point out, and that's why I brought that example, when you see a regime reacting the manner in which they are reacting, you know that a raw nerve has been touched.
So in other words, this was supposed to be some simple thing that was in a way fun, but then they are reacting.
That's what I'm
then you're
saying.
using it as a weapon.
That's what I'm not saying. I am focusing you.
Major General,
I am focusing you to the impact of the different methods of struggle that can be prosecuted.
To an innocent, inconsequential issue.
No.
That which would have not been, where somewhere else nobody would have paid attention.
A situation that is politically
somewhere
unstable.
Else nobody would have paid attention.
A situation that is politically unstable. That's why everybody has to keep focusing. To focus on anything else is to miss the point.
So now, you barely have the numbers in parliament. And you're talking about solving this as a political, getting a political solution. How do you intend to do that?
As I've already indicated, the situation in this country, the political situation is quite complex. Indeed, you've pointed out that we have got 37 members of parliament in the 10th parliament, which is true. However, it's one front within the struggle. There are going to be quite a number of other fronts. We'll have to see how to conduct mobilization and organizational activities at the grassroots level in terms of consolidating support where we have it and also expanding. We'll also be involved in different fronts. There will be fronts in terms of civic actions. At times may be simultaneous, at times may be sequenced. There will also be fronts. There are those, for example, who believe in prayer as a very active and effective front. Those who believe in it, who realize that nothing can be achieved in the physical unless it has already been won in the spiritual realm, will engage in that. The most important thing is that as we fight on those many fronts, that our focus is on that common struggle, that we've got an end state to which we all will have focused, that this is what we want to achieve for this country. And as long as different people are focused on different fronts, the most important thing is to know that these different fronts are coordinated, that they are not in conflict, but that they are complementary. And once we manage that well, the situation largely is in our favor.
Aren't you going to lose the confidence of the Ugandan people? Because we have been here before,
Yes.
from 2006, 2011, 2011, and now. When when even presidential candidate Dr. Kizza Besigye was promising a tsunami, and then you go to walk to work, and then you say, this regime will not survive 3 years or even 4 years, it's going to collapse, and nothing happens, and we've moved 15 years down the road. And I mean, we have been here before, haven't we?
The problem in that analysis is to make it seem as if the people are on one side and we are on a different side. We're all in this together. So it's not as if we're just struggling for ourselves. We're all part of a community that wants to live in a country where their freedoms and rights observed and enjoyed as are enshrined within the Constitution. We are part of a community which we believe the majority of the people want to see fairness, we want to see transparency, we want to see zero tolerance to corruption, we want to see democratic practices. So we are in this together. So for anybody to stand on the side and say, you guys have failed, I think they would be missing the point too. Because we are not, you know, fighting as if, should we succeed, that we are the only ones who would be enjoying the outcomes of the struggle. No. We need to know that, yes, for me, I'm inclined to doing things this way. The other one may see I'm inclined to do things that way. Another may be having a different way they can tactfully engage in this situation. But at the end of it all, we all need to know, the majority of the Ugandan people, if we think that this situation is far different from what we would desire to see happen in this country, that is different from what we would want to see be, that we therefore need to coordinate effort until we overcome this situation. I keep telling many number of people whom we engage with, even those who are not necessarily in politics. I know one thing that is common to us as human beings, the endeavors that we go through, is to try to better our lives. So most people go out looking for money, but you don't get the money that you desire, the level at which you want to be, you know, overnight. So you find people working 10 years, 20 years, trying to reach the levels of wealth that they would have focused their minds to. Until they reach there, they keep struggling, until they go down and die and pass on. So why would it be different from politics? Because as long as we have not achieved freedoms and rights and the democratic environment that we want to see, why would anybody want to give up? What is so more valuable on this earth than freedom, than rights, than to leave your home and know that if anything happens, even if I was to be taken to court, I will get justice? If I want to go do anything, that I am a citizen that has got equal rights like anybody else, whatever station of life I'm at.
Because
that if I go and
because you have that political conviction, Mr. General,
counts, yes.
There are those also who have a certain political conviction, and they think they are right, and they are in the NRM, and they equally have their numbers. and so they are convinced that what they are doing is legitimate, is legal, is justified, and is supported by the people.
I would be satisfied with that if what they say in the open is exactly what they say in the private. But see, when you find there's conflict between what they say when they're like on TV or like when they're on microphones, wherever they are, whether in parliament or whatever, if it was consistent with what they say in private, then I would know that maybe we are wrong. But when we interact off the public scenes, you know, not in like on a TV station like here, or like maybe when someone is, you know, speaking on a public microphone, maybe.
So what have they been? What have they been telling you?
You know that the majority of the people,
what have they been telling you,
including those in the movement, they want change. The only thing they don't know is how. They don't know yet how.
Yet this afternoon, we saw a democratic process take place, and the status quo remains. A young man offered himself, and most of them in the open. Why couldn't they?
Don't go by what you see in the open. Mubarak, you know, hardly a year after Mubarak had got, I think, 90-something%, Mubarak was run out of power. Then Ali in Tunisia. You can see Libya is in a state of disintegration. From the outside, most people thought that Gaddafi was loved in Libya because the number of things that he was doing using the money that Libya had. You know, the provisions of services, the provisions, you know, in terms of welfare of the people of Libya, because there were few, there were only about 3 million people. But he had done a lot of tremendous things in material, material things, different from here. But even then, there are things which people desire, which are intangible. You don't touch them. Things like freedom, things like democracy.
So things like freedom,
so
things like democracy, your members, some of them have been arrested, others face arrest, others are incarcerated in their own homes, including, I think, Honorable Wafula Ogutu. So how do you intend to disentangle yourself from that kind of situation?
Maintain track. We keep fighting for rights and freedoms until we get them. That's the nature of struggles everywhere where there are human beings who want to, live as free men, not as slaves. It's not unique to us here in Uganda. It has happened since the beginning of time, everywhere. The question is at what point we build that critical mass to tilt the balance. I think that's where we need to keep focused. So
when do you see yourself building a critical mass that will change the balance of power?
I actually have a feeling that at the population level, a critical mass has already been achieved. I could see like in the last election. The unfortunate thing is that the level of the leadership, we have not yet built that critical mass. Unfortunately, the nature of the political elite here in Uganda and largely in many African countries, we are shaped either by educational systems. I don't know exactly what the problem is. We tend to live for the day. We want to survive. We have a weakness in terms of being so risk averse. I can see a situation where the population now is more advanced than the level of the elite. So we have to concentrate on that, ensure that we do a number of things that convince people who have reached levels of leadership, more so at the top, to make that transition. Because transitions are necessary. People don't change overnight. We have to work on that. I look at it, for example, in the army. Look at people who've never been in the army. If you, an exchange of fire or maybe shooting there, the tendency of most civilians is to run away from the sound of the fire. But you recruit them, you take them into military training 6 months. And after training, when there's fire, strange enough, you find them moving to the direction of fire. That's a transition. We need to do something like that within the politics of the country, so we can have a critical mass of elite who offer leadership to the population, which largely has shifted.
So you actually want the leadership and the people of Uganda to be running into the eye of the storm whenever there's chaos in the city, not running away.
Not chaos, even giving leadership in terms of the electoral processes themselves. We can see areas where there were very strong leaders, committed leaders who were able to work in teams, putting off victories in many, many places. We also realize where there would be a population largely in favor of change, but there would be weakness in leadership, and you find maybe there's 1 or 2 leaders, but they are overwhelmed. But if you find that there's a critical mass in such an area, you would find that we would have made significant change or significant advances. So we have to keep focused on that and work on it day and night.
Major General Mugisha Muntu, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara, and my guest tonight is Major General Mugisha Muntu, the President of the Forum for Democratic Change. You recently commented on the promotion of Brigadier Muhoozi Kainerugaba to Major General, and your comment was like, maybe you looked at it as strange, if I remember. But you yourself, actually, you became Major General at the age of 32. Yep. He's Major General at the age of 42.
Yep.
Is that strange?
Yeah, well, really, circumstances are different.
How is that? You were a Major General at 32. He's a Major General at 42.
Yeah,
you're 10 years younger then, when you were a Major General.
I think,
Commander of the Army.
Circumstances are different. I think it is unfortunate specifically for Muhoozi, being a son of General Museveni. It's going to be very difficult for him. He'll have to do quite a number of extraordinary things to prove that he's standing in his own right. is carrying a burden. I don't know how he'll carry it. More so in a situation which exists now politically.
Being a son of a president does not take away his right as a Ugandan.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Does not take away his right as a serving office of the UPDF.
Yeah, absolutely not. It doesn't. And he really can command and do any other service for the country in his own right. But you see, unfortunately for him, he has been positioned by history in the situation in which he is, and he'll have to do more than any other person would do to prove himself where he stands.
But as a former army commander and a major general yourself, really,
let me complete this, because I think it's critical, even for himself. We are in a very, very delicate transition, politically, whether people want to believe that or not. Every move he makes is going to be watched. If he makes the right moves, which are in the interests of the Ugandan people, by such moves, therefore building trust with the population, he would be judged different. If he takes actions consistent with the suspicions that people have, thinking that whatever he's doing,
in an institution
just a
like
second, first a second, is very important. If he acts in a manner that places him where people think that he is deliberately put there by the father, who also happens to be the commander-in-chief, history will judge him differently. Incidentally, I don't think that at this point in time it's so much what the father does, who also happens to be the commander-in-chief. It's going to be so much what Major General Muhoozi does. His entire career in the military, even politically, the judgment that's going to be put upon him by history is now entirely in his hands. He either does the right things and he absolves himself, or he acts in a manner where, and you know, history is ruthless. The passage of time is ruthless. It doesn't care. It doesn't care whether you're a president, an emperor, a pope, a bishop, or a major general, a general marshal, whatever you are. You do right, history judges you right. You do wrong, time crushes you.
So what is expected of an army officer? He's not a police officer. He's not an IGP. He's not be running around.
That now falls upon him as him. Of course, extra to being an army officer is also a son of General Museveni. And we're involved in contestation politically. So beyond Major General Muhoozi, also the other army officers, those who are in command of the army, those who are in the police, similarly, same thing in this transition. How they act is fully in their hands. And how they'll be judged by history is definitely also fully in their hands. And the good thing with history, even myself who is here speaking, I'll also be judged by history. All of us are going to be judged by history, including General Museveni himself. So we all have to act in whatever manner we act, very well knowing that the passage of time is going to judge all of us. The beauty of it is that the passage of time, and that is history, doesn't discriminate. It's the most fair manner of judgment that exists on the earth where we are. And it's ruthless when it comes to judgment. You can't compromise it, you can't bribe it, you can't do anything. That's the beauty of it.
He's a serving military officer who will be taking orders, I suppose.
Yeah, but you
from
can
all those senior to him.
You can question orders if they are wrong orders.
Is that what you do in the army?
Look, when I joined PAFO, I was still a serving member of parliament. I had already left command. When I joined the opposition, they opened space. Some chose to join the movement. I chose to join the opposition. There are many officers who've done that. There are also officers whom I know, even when they are still serving, have questioned orders. They don't come out in the public, but even privately they question orders and say, this is not correct. You go in this direction, it will cause a problem for the country. And where we are heading is going to require that we have a significant number of officers who can stand boldly, firmly, and advise on how this transition that is inevitable will have to be managed. I keep communicating to the army officers whenever I get an opportunity.
And you seem to be sending a message right now.
A public platform.
And you seem to be sending some
UPDF has served in many countries that have been considered failed states. It has been in Somalia, it's been in South Sudan, they are in Central African Republic, they have ever served in Liberia. The core, the foundation of UPDF certainly was good. That's what makes it even withstand all the kind of situation that you still go through. So they need to know what to avoid for a country not to become a failed state, what to do, what not to do. And therefore, we would like to believe that they are going to use that experience, the professional training that they have done to ensure that a regime passes, another comes, and UPDF remains, and a stable country remains. It would be, I mean, we've had two armies before go with the president of a country. UA with Amin, UNLA with Obote. I think it would be a cursed country if UPDF was to go with General Museveni.
So now, in this impasse that we're in, are you proposing to have a dialogue? And that dialogue, must it have, because you called for an international, some kind of audit of the general election.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a sovereign country with its own constitution and own laws.
It's a sovereign country with internal problems. Those problems have to be resolved, one way or another.
So is your plan to have Ugandans involved in the audit, or just foreigners come and audit it?
No, we've never talked about foreigners. We've always talked about an independent audit, where the two sides in contestation would sit and agree, one, on the framework, two, on a list of items that would be audited, three, on the nature of the composition. There are many Ugandans who can be proposed, and once they are agreed upon by all sides, and then you can get technical backups. There are those who are at an international level have got the expertise. Those can come and give technical backup. And then you go and conduct an audit, and the outcomes of which we have expressed that would be willing to accept the outcomes of such an audit. Even now, I mean, the bigger thing that was terrifying the regime was 12th, the day of swearing in. They were so restless. It was, I don't know what was making them so fearful. Now that has passed. So if they were confident, if they wanted to have a legitimacy, which they are so craving for, they would say, okay, let's have an audit. What would be the problem? Now, they've been sworn in. Politically, of course, they are illegitimate.
But where's that simple evidence, General Muntu? Where's that simple evidence, General Muntu, that you actually got 52%?
Politically illegitimate as they are, de facto, they are the ones in charge of power. We recognize that. So what would be the problem in going, the whole point, whatever figures would be mentioned, the point to reach a credible resolution of that contestation would be to go and carry out a thorough audit. Why would they be fearful of that? You tell me. They have already been sworn in.
Because they think you're a poor loser who doesn't want to accept defeat.
But they want credibility. And they are fearful. Kampala was massed with troops, army and police. Even that didn't give them confidence. You just want to bring a prisoner from Luzira to Nakawa and the whole place is massed with forces. How much money is spent on having troops, army, police spend 2 months on a daily basis, the expenditure over that. So as long as there's contestation, the money that you keep pumping into the security services, what for? When it could go to buy machines in Mulago or pay teachers. Why would they not say, look, we are confident of the outcomes. Let's go do an audit.
I've tried to find
what would be the problem.
There are those Ugandans who think they're sick and tired of this kind of chaos on the streets. They rather move on, provide for their families, and life continues because they have withstood the last 30 years. They can continue another 5 because that has happened.
There are people who are always like that in any society. There are those who rather live as slaves as long as they have daily bread. There are others who would rather go without bread.
Those who have given you support many times, and that support has not, come out to anything. So they are moving on.
Moving on, but moving on has got different aspects. There's moving on in terms you eat breakfast, you eat lunch, you eat supper, you drive a good car, you live in a good house, but you live in fear. You don't have justice, you don't have rights, you don't have freedoms. It's a choice. There are those who can't afford to live that way. So that's where the contestation is. And it's not unique to Uganda. It's part of the human condition. And that's why since the beginning of time there has been struggles. There are people who say, I can't live as a slave. I must live wherever I am as a free person. There must be rights and freedoms which are observed. And that's why society advances.
But where is that multiplier effect where you can have that critical mass of people who are going to think like you and say, I'd rather live one day as a lion than 100 years as a sheep? Because most people have decided to say, you know what? Let me move on, let me get what I have, and this is it. If you call to go on the street, quite a number, well, some people will avoid. Say, Kampala is under lockdown, I'm not going there.
If God didn't sow those seeds in the human spirit, we would still all be living in Stone Age. But within the divine nature of man, to enjoy the freedoms and rights, or exploit the potential that God gave us. But there's contestation. Of course, beyond the politics, I don't know whether I should go in that direction. Contestation goes beyond politics. Contestation, at the core of it is spiritual. And there are contestations. And that's why since the beginning of time, that contestation has gone on. It manifests itself in political terms. Yes, even in our environment right now, it's manifesting itself in political terms. So you always have people, even in the Bible, you have people like Esau.
You want to surrender yourselves to the spiritual realm, and you think that's what's going to solve the problem?
It's not spiritual. You have mixed up the two things. I'm trying to say at the root of all that, the contestation that there is within the human condition since the beginning of time, is that there are those who know that God created us to enjoy what he gave us to enjoy on this earth. And you have to fight for it. And most times, when we are doing whatever we are doing, wherever there is an established society, it manifests itself in political terms. And even now, it's in political terms. But even when you look at the spiritual aspects, the nature that you are talking about, people who say, let things pass, there are people like Esau, who comes and says, you know what, I am famished, I want something quick. But he already has meat because he has killed an animal. He could have spent another 1 hour, skin it, boil it, cook it, and do it and eat, but still retain his birthright. But he couldn't wait for 1 hour because he wanted a quick fix. And he sold his birthright to his young brother. So that also is not new in terms of this kind of contestation for people who say, let things just pass as long as I can sleep. Yeah, but the others who know that can never take anywhere.
The politics in Uganda is quite transactional.
But that's what needs to be cured. That's what needs to be cured. And it will be. Because naturally it is within the human spirit that even those who say, let things pass, they are going to reach a time when they will become agitated. Because people get agitated at different points in time. Even with
you seem to be fixated on prayer, and I suppose prayer is good, but you really think prayer
some of us are involved in
there's going to be a divine movement some kind of an epiphany, talking to people and telling them this is what is going to happen?
It's one of the fronts. It's a legitimate
So
front.
you believe, this is what you believe now?
At a personal level, I get involved in different fronts. I've involved in war, where you get weapons and fight. We got involved in civic actions on the streets. I get involved in party building. In this particular case, we're also involved in spiritual warfare in the open. It's something that many people carry out in private. Well, spiritual warfare, I don't know whether there are many people who believe in that. But for those who understand it, of course, they know how powerful a force it is. Because there are those who, by the grace of God, realize that anything that you achieve in the physical is simply a manifestation of victory in the spiritual. But we don't have to dwell so much on that. There are those who believe in that, and they'll continue on that path. Yes. I believe in that myself. I believe that whatever you see in the physical is a manifestation of whatever you have achieved in the spiritual realm. But even besides spirituality, even in terms of practice, there's nothing that is physical. Even a building like this that we are in, the design started as an idea in someone's mind. A table like this is physical, but it's an outcome of something that emerged in the mind of someone who designed it. Anything that you can touch came from something that you can touch.
At the smallest level, a thought can turn into matter.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I'll be opening the lines so that you too can contribute this discussion. Ask a question or make a comment to what Major General Mugisha Muntu is telling us tonight. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara, and my guest tonight is General Mugisha Muntu, the president of the Forum for Democratic Change. What do you see the next 5 years will be like if we continue to be in this kind of deadlock?
I really can't predict with any certainty. I can't put my finger and say on this day this will happen. But my hope is that more and more Ugandans will become more active in terms of raising their voices and say we can't continue this path. Because the moment you build a critical mass, then you can check the downward trend and discuss this question and say, how do we manage this? Because transition is inevitable. I mean, whatever anybody may want to believe, there has to be a transition that is well managed. So we can maintain stability in the country. So we can correct the areas where we have gone wrong as a country. So we can sustain where a number
about the
of
transition. Is that transition from the NRM to FDC or the NRM to UPC?
Even if it was within the same.
Or within the NRM itself?
Even if it was within the NRM itself. Because you see, for a transition to happen, whether internally within the movement, whether it's a different force, like in this case FDC and us, the opposition, there are a number of factors that would have to be attended to. You have to ensure that there is democratic practice. You must ensure that there is transparency and fairness in the manner in which, for example, the electoral processes are handled. An electoral commission like there is now, who really can't see that this electoral commission is so hopeless that even to continue with it, for anybody to hope and expect.
It's very interesting, General Muntu. Tonight, I've met a very different General Muntu. You're getting radicalized.
I've always been like this. You remember when the Bush, when I was just 23 years.
Yeah, but you came out as a general.
When there was nothing.
But you came out as a general, and you came out as a general. People were saying a general who could not even harm a fly.
Incidentally, when there was nothing chasing me, I could have just had my rifle here, as people say that, let things pass. I mean, my life wasn't under any threat.
Let me involve. There are quite a number of Ugandans who want to ask you questions or maybe contribute to this discussion. So I'm opening the lines right now so that you two at home or wherever you are, you can contribute. Let me take the very first call online. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yes, good evening. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, yes, I like.
Sorry?
Hello.
Yes, you're on air. Go right ahead and tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Yes, I'm Samuel. I like the way General Muntu is talking to it. But I think he should also get to know that
You think his political game is what?
what he's talking is not very good. What he needs
I can't hear you, sir. I have to take another call online. Hello? Okay. So, it appears you want dialogue, but dialogue can happen if the people you're in contestation with accept that dialogue. When they have the instruments of coercion and they have used them with a lot of efficiency, they can push on.
Incidentally, we are not the ones who started the question of dialogue. As we are moving towards, I think it was immediately after elections, there were so many approaches from the regime to Dr. Chiza Besigye. And we sat and we said, look, we have always been open to dialogue. We didn't initiate it, but that doesn't matter, whoever initiated it. We said we have had 4 conditions that we set in 2011 as a combined opposition and also civil society. We said attend to these and then we would have no problem in having dialogue. And as long as those 4 conditions are met, why? Why would we have any problem? Because we want a resolution of any problem in this country. So if we read genuineness on the other side, then we would sit down and discuss the best way out of this problem, how to fix the fundamental problem that they are in this country.
Is this the first time that you have lost an election and contested this as FDC and Ugandans have continued with the NRM government? This is the 4th time. Yeah. You've been, with all respect, flawed. Well, unfairly or fairly, the 4th time, yeah. General Muntu.
But does that mean we should give up fighting for our rights and freedoms? Absolutely not.
I have Ugandans online who have questions. Let me take a call online. Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Good evening, sir. What's your name?
Yes,
I can't hear you. Could you repeat that?
Yes, I'm John.
Yes, John.
Yes, good evening. Yes.
It appears you are listening to yourself. So if you want to have a healthy conversation, you'll turn down the volume of your TV set. Then it will not send an echo to you or here.
Yes. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to thank the Minister for his presence in the studio. I'm very glad to see you and the studio at your presentation.
Thank you.
You are carrying the heart of Ugandans who are focused. The need and the growth is fundamental in the direction in which Uganda is.
Okay. So well, the problem is that the line is bad and we can't hear you properly. So I'm just going to try 1 or 2 more. If the lines are not okay, then I'll have to apologize for that. Maybe we shall work on that. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Good evening, Patrick Kamala.
Good evening, sir.
My name is Robert. I'm calling from Kampala.
Yes, sir. You're on air. Go right ahead, sir.
Good evening, General.
Good evening.
My concern, General, I did not see you on Colonel Besigye swearing in. What would have happened? Does that create an impression that you are not in support of that?
Don't go by impressions.
and my other concern, General.
Yes.
I have seen FDC members of parliament in I thought we were not supposed to be participating in this government. Are you also going to look for the leader of opposition?
Oh,
okay, thank you. Thank you. Could respond to that.
I think we need to clear a misunderstanding that seems to be in the public. there are a big number of people who seem not to realize that Parliament is one of the three organs of state. This is the judiciary, there is Parliament, there is the executive. That's the root of the principle of separation of powers, that you have an independent Parliament, an independent judiciary, and independent executive that coordinate in running the matters of state, but that they act independent of each other. That's the desirable situation. However, even in that area within this country, there is still contestation. We are still trying to grapple with having each of those three organs independent. The executive is over-domineering. However, that does not mean that when you are elected by your constituents as a member of Parliament on FDC ticket or DP ticket, it doesn't mean that now you are working with the executive. No, you are in Parliament as a member of opposition, but within the third organ of state, which is Parliament. So you've got a legitimate right to be there, even when you are opposed to the regime. The regime is in the executive. They are the ones who will be running a country. That does not affect you, who is in the opposition, because you are in the opposition, you've taken that platform legitimately because the population wants to hear your voice in that Parliament. Yeah, so but if our members of Parliament didn't swear in, therefore, it means that we wouldn't, even we ourselves in the opposition, means we wouldn't be understanding what politics is all about. Even the principle of separation of powers, it means that would be mixed up. Or at least
so you are clear you are in the opposition.
We're in the opposition.
Yes. So the NRM are the ones who are legitimately in power. Yes. You are in the opposition. Then why did you have even to go and do a swearing? If you
that's a totally different matter. Because you see, for example, as the situation unfolds, people also realize that at a tactical level, there are many fronts. Parliament itself is a front. We have taken that platform to keep on exposing the regime through Parliament.
So will you be appointing,
it's like
will you be appointing the leader of opposition?
As we stand now, that's the position we have, unless anything radically changes.
You'll have a leader of opposition.
Yes, as we stand now.
So at one point,
look at
you accept yourselves
one struggle as different fronts.
Members in the opposition. At one front, you want to say you are actually in power.
When we are prosecuting a war, if you have one struggle, but design different fronts, it depends on your capability to conduct at the different fronts that you are at, and if you are effective and coordinate them, they lead you to the victory that you desire.
But also when you reduce the points of attack, it can also make yourself stronger.
No, that one now remains those who are conducting the warfare. And if in our assessment, it means that we have got to operate at the different fronts, so will it be. And we would also like those who follow us to believe that we know what we are doing.
Let me open the lines once again and have some more Ugandans ask you. Hello. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Kasapaso.
Deo?
Calling from Kasapaso. Thank you for that show.
You're welcome, Mr. Tuheyo.
So, Mugisha Muntu you are hosting there. To me, it's not because he's in the army, but because he fought his war. And I have a feeling in myself that you, Kamara, should fight your own war. Because you seem to pin him as if he's not doing enough. Thank you. Good evening.
I didn't get it.
Okay, I didn't understand that, Mr. Tuheyo. I wish I did. Hello, let me take another caller. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
What's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm Vincent. I'm calling from Tintali.
Vincent Tintali on air, sir.
I'll first want to that guess.
Oh, this.
Ugandan. The situation this country is going through is not for them. It's for people that stand and have fight and are willing to raise their lives for. We thank him for leadership and providing. The struggle continues.
Okay.
Has now involved prayer.
The The line, Vincent, the line is not very clear, but at least we've made sense of what you're trying to say, that this situation is not for the for the faint-hearted, and you are thanking him for the struggle he's in. Well, let me take another call online. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, good evening, sir. What's your name? Okay. Let me take a last call online. Hello?
Hello.
Good evening, sir. What's your name?
Ivan from Bunga here.
Ivan, you're on air, sir. No. Okay. The lines tonight are terrible. Well, so you almost as if you're destined to be in opposition in perpetuity.
You know, I know most times when we refer to our past, there are people who have got tired of that, but it's part of our history. So I will refer to the time when we were fighting in the bush. I know, like by 83, there are people who really had reached a point where they were just giving up. And some escaped. They couldn't read the dynamics that actually were moving towards victory. Even in 84, I think it was 84, when we crossed the West, the regime read it differently. They thought we were fleeing, going to Congo. But you can imagine in 85, that's when we reached the almost the pinnacle of victory. That's when...
so you consider yourself now like a NRA in 85?
No, I'm trying to refer to how people perceive situations or how they analyze situations. Because right now, there are many people who only look at the surface of things. If you look at the surface of things, you see General Museveni as the one in charge of the country now. You also see the army, you see police, you just see today's results in parliament, and you can easily give up and say, look, this situation is just not possible. But that's on the surface of things. When you look at the dynamics beneath what is happening in this country, when you see the restlessness that there is in the country, when you see the depth of fear that is within the regime, then one should be reading a different picture altogether. Things are not as normal as they might seem on the surface, or as the regime may want them to seem. So those who really are on the side of the fight for change should not lose hope.
Thank you.
We only have to manage this situation skillfully across the board. Even those who are in operating within the regime, but who love the country more than they love the regime, we have to handle this situation skillfully. Because change is inevitable, but we want to have change, but also maintain the oneness of the country, the integrity of the country.
Unfortunately, the time is not on our side tonight. Thank you very much, General Muntu, for your time. And thank you very much for you who have made contributions on this show. And, well, the good thing is that Ugandans, we always talk about our issues. But the most important thing is that whatever we do, let's keep our country together. Because we have only one country called Uganda. And we cannot afford to let Uganda go back into the tumultuous times that we went through back in the 80s. Good night, and God bless Uganda.
NTV, turning on your